Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Phase podcast. Today, I'm speaking to Kieran, better known as Kieran from Phase, about building confidence. He's going to be sharing stories and lessons from his own life, but also from the people he's worked with over the years. Enjoy. Kieran, what does confidence mean to you?
Confidence to me, it means that sense of being assured and content and happy with who you are, knowing who you are, sort of that inside and out. Being able to be at ease with who you are in your gifts, your talents, your abilities. It doesn't always mean being content and happy with where you are, but it's knowing that sort of value who you are with inside.
And lots of people might mistake confidence with people who are the loudest in the room, perhaps those extroverts in their friendship groups that just seem to be externally confident. Would you say that's actually a mistaken way to view confidence?
Yeah, I would. It's a type of confidence, um, but for me, that you can sort of fake it till you make it. Amy Cuddy talks a lot around that in a great TED talk around sort of body language and things like that. And at times, I think we have to. I really enjoy speaking to people and doing things like assemblies and speaking at churches and other keynote things. And I love that. Yet inside, I can be really nervous, but I have to appear outwardly confident. And as I get going, it carries on. And so, always being the loudest or that person that's willing to speak doesn't necessarily mean confidence. So sometimes that can actually be a lack of confidence, and it's almost a mask. And so, I think, yeah, for me, like real confidence is almost that internal thing that can come out, if that makes sense. So, and I do think it's a real challenge. I'm a massive extrovert, and I do feel so often introverts are overlooked because they're not loud, because they're not willing to stand up. But sometimes there are people that, and think about it, James. You probably know some people where they don't say much, but when they speak, people listen. And I love that because I'm probably someone that will speak more and more. You ask me this question now. If you don't stop me, I'll probably go on for 20 minutes. But I enjoy talking. But you'll have other people that have that real confidence inside that just, yeah, they don't have to say much, but when they do speak or when they do something, it speaks volumes.
Hmm. So I suppose something I took from that is that someone can be the loudest person in the room. They could be speaking in front of a huge group of people, but they might not be feeling confident. They might be feeling terrified inside. Whereas there might be someone who sits there in a conversation, doesn't say much, and you might think, "Oh, I wonder if there's something up with them." But actually, no, they're confident in their selves. They don't feel like they have to contribute unless they've got something meaningful to contribute. Their confidence comes from how they feel rather than maybe actually the actions and what other people might see. Have I kind of got that right?
Yeah, yeah. I say it's that. It's. I suppose it's a very personal thing as well, and it's. I said right at the start about being at ease with yourself, and you often see it in maybe a film where you get the bad guys come up to almost like Batman. If you imagine that, I was just watching reliving some of the Batman Begins series, and you get the bad guys that come up to Batman, and they're all sort of gregarious and they're trying to sort of show their alpha male type, and Batman's just silent, just stands there, holds his ground, and he knows his ability, he trusts who he is, he knows himself, and very quickly you see these bad guys sort of their confidence just wanes, because it was just that bravado.
Mm. So lots of people might have seen the title to this episode and come along thinking this episode is going to teach me how to become the loudest person in the room, to be able to walk into any situation and just own that space, be super confident in that way. So I think this first couple of minutes of the podcast has been really good to frame the rest of the conversation. So we know that we're actually talking about how do we build internal confidence, where we can walk into situations and feel good about ourselves, feel like we belong there without necessarily having to be the loudest, and go into situations feeling confident to be ourselves, whether that does mean being the loudest and needing to take a lead, or actually being led or listening to others and being confident in lots of different contexts. So that's a good frame for this conversation. And we thought about what confidence means and what it feels like to maybe be confident. But can you think of a time in your life where maybe you felt a lack of confidence? What does that look like? Let's start with what steps did you take to overcome a lack of confidence you've had in the past?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, there's a few times, I think definitely when I was a teenager, there was a number of times like that. And a key time actually was when almost changing friendship group for a whole variety of reasons. I knew that the people I was hanging around with, basically they were going down a path I didn't want to go down. And I knew it wasn't right, but actually at the time didn't really have the confidence
Mm,
to step away from that because it was, faced with that sense of like not having any friends. Um, and then a long story short, basically I found this other group of friends who are that's still my best friends today. Many years on. But in that, interestingly, I didn't have the confidence to step away initially from that first group. But as I connected with my these new friends, Tim and Richard and others, they actually helped me because in a sense they valued me for who I was. They didn't expect me to be anything other than who I was. Um, I didn't have to. I wasn't having to pretend or do actions or make choices that didn't sort of sit right with me, and that really helped. It didn't mean that it was easy. It was still a real challenge, but having the right people around me who valued me for who I was, who I guess were into the same things as me, a similar outlook in the world. In fact, they had an outlook that I appreciated. I saw them as better, and I wanted to become more like them, and not in that lack of confidence way. Just they were good people.
mm,
They cared for people. They were honest. They were fun. Um, they engaged with people, and
mm,
actually, this other group weren't. And yeah, that was a tough time, but I learned a lot from that as
mm.
well.
And maybe I'm being a little bit judgmental here, but you spoke about that previous friendship group maybe looking like they were heading down a path you didn't want to go down. And actually, the impression I get is that they were perhaps quite a cool friendship group. That'd be fair to say. And you said that in that group you maybe didn't feel confident. Do you feel like lots of the individuals in that friendship group actually probably looked confident and had that bravado with one another, maybe as individuals didn't feel confident on the inside?
Yeah, great question. I think actually, as I reflect back on that group now, it's probably caught up in that idea of needing kudos and reputation and all of that sort of stuff, and that from that gave confidence and that gave you purpose. And I look back now and recognize that I wasn't interested in that stuff. That wasn't me. I was trying to be something I wasn't. Now for them, I'd probably I couldn't speak definitely for them, but if as I look back now, I'd say, but they were probably in similar positions, but maybe I had more confidence in me than I recognised because I was able to step away from that.
Mm,
For those guys, they weren't. In hindsight, so looking back, showed me that I had a lot more confidence. And sometimes I think confidence isn't about being totally sure of it; it's just being willing to go the distance. So um, it's not like a lack of fear; it's just being willing to go into the fear, knowing
mm.
that there's a better thing on the other side.
And I suppose as your view of confidence would never have changed if you hadn't made that decision. So if you'd have stayed in that friendship group where perhaps the appearance of confidence was built on bravado and perhaps risk taking and things like that, you would have thought, well, this is just what it means to be confident. I just have to fake it until I make it for the rest of my life. But when you took that step and joined your new friendship group with the friends that you have that are still your friends today, which is really cool to hear, actually you realised confidence isn't like that at all. Actually, with these guys, I can feel confident just being myself. I don't have to do things that I don't want to do or act confident or act brave in different ways. Actually, confidence comes from within, from being in environments and around people where I can just be myself.
Yeah, absolutely. From then, as I look forward now, and again, it didn't instantly happen. I've definitely grown it. Very, very few times do I get caught up by doing something because someone says, "Oh, you should do that," or those comments when "Oh, you're a chicken" or whatever it is. I'm happily say that's fine. I'm all right with that. But that has been sort of that steady growth of understanding myself and knowing, again, I reflect back on my friends, on my family and things like that. People that love me, I remind myself in those times when I have that challenge of like, actually, the people that really mean something to me, this is what they think of me, and they love me for who I am. These other people that maybe I've only just met or in this situation, I'm not going to let them dictate to me who I should be or how I should act.
Mm. One lesson that I'm taking from that story is one really important thing to do to build confidence is surround yourself with the right people. Could you squeeze out any other lessons from perhaps that story or other parts of your journey of growing confidence?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think definitely having the right people around you. You know, we are not, yes, we are individuals, but we're a creative community. And, you know, there's a lot you'll hear about people about my tribe and that sort of stuff. But yeah, having the right people around you is so important. I think another key thing is, you know, taking a moment to think about how important would this choice, this decision, this thing be in a day, in a week, in a month, you know, 3 months, a year. And sometimes putting it in that perspective can really help. And I find that useful. You know, if I do this thing or behave this, what's going to be the benefit? And often it's just that momentary. You know, I don't want to feel awkward. I don't want to have to say no, or I don't want to feel a little bit embarrassed. Actually, now often I will choose to wrestle with that awkwardness over doing that action that I know it isn't going to benefit me. Um, and but again, it adds into that having those right people around you. Um, you know, who am I trying to be? Who do I want to be? How do I want to grow and develop? And are my daily choices helping me do that?
You mentioned there about perspective thinking and asking yourself, what will I think of this decision in a month's time, a year's time, maybe even 3 years' time? Was there any specific person that maybe taught you that? And it's also indicative of the fact that actually one of the ways we see confidence in people is their ability to make good decisions, right? And sometimes we get stuck in the paralysis of analysis or those different choices, or we think that the choice we're going to make today is going to ruin the rest of our lives. And so I think that's really wise that actually using different tools to change our perspective on the decisions we're going to make, that might make us more confident as we go and make those decisions. But can you think of a specific person that's maybe given you a lot of wisdom like that? Was maybe someone that was a mentor for you in building confidence?
Yeah, it's probably more than one. And definitely, ever since I was about 17, from my youth group, they organised us to have mentors, just somebody to, you know, a bit older than us. And from that day, my very first mentor was a guy called Graham. Uh, Pretty much from that day, I've continually had a mentor, someone to learn from. Because I'm really aware, even as confident as I may be, I don't know everything and I need that wisdom. Um, and so having somebody who I can talk honestly to, who I can be open with, can be vulnerable with, who I can ask questions and say, look, you know, what did you do in this situation? So I don't
Mm.
get stuck in that analysis paralysis. That's really helped. I remember a key moment where I went back to watch my rugby team play after I'd left. I'd finished playing for them a couple of years prior, and I went there. I was about 17, 18 years of age. And my rugby coach, Phil, he's no longer with us anymore, but we were all having a chat and a laugh. And he turned around to me and he said, Kieran, you were never the greatest rugby player. Of which isn't a very confidence building comment, let's be
Mm.
honest. But he didn't stop there. He then said after that, he said, Kieran, you were never the greatest rugby player. He said, but you were the heart of the team. And there was something around that comment that stuck with me. And it was like, I don't have to be the best. I don't have to be the greatest. I've got this ability to connect people and to play a part of being the heartbeat or helping things grow and develop. And that, on my tough days, I actually look back on
Mm.
that, and that really gives me confidence that somebody saw something in me that could make a difference.
I love that you've held on to that comment as well. It's amazing. How often do we say things like that to one another? And maybe it just shows the importance of encouraging one another. But also, if there's any young people listening to this, or just anyone that's maybe someone said something encouraging to them in the last week, but they brushed it off, they've just
Mm.
not noticed it, is actually the importance of holding on to that. Maybe write it down somewhere in a journal, even stick it on a
Mm.
notice board or put it on a magnet on the fridge. Of those encouragements that we get, those words of kindness and positivity, hold on to them because they can almost define us sometimes, or we can see ourselves in a different light that maybe we wouldn't have seen ourselves before. Like that, I'm sure it sounds like that comment did for you is as you were starting to go on this journey of realizing actually I've got some leadership skills, and this shows because even though I wasn't the best rugby player, I was the heart of the team because of the skills and the characteristics my coach saw in me that maybe I didn't. And so holding on to those words of encouragement from other people maybe a really key lesson from that.
Absolutely. And what I loved, as I said about what you said, it wasn't just all praise.
Mm,
It was reality. I wasn't the greatest
mm,
player, and I think there's something around that as well when we share praise, to share honest praise.
mm,
Nobody's perfect, and that's all part of it. Again, confidence isn't about that bravado. It's
mm.
about being assured. I've got some rough edges. I still need to work on them.
That's really true, actually, is that you knew that that compliment from that coach was real because it wasn't. Well, I don't know who the rugby player of the time would have been, but it wouldn't be, oh, Kieran, you're going to be the next Johnny Wilkinson. You're the heart of the team. I don't think Johnny Wilkinson would have been around back then. I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting that actually there was, yeah, that was real. It wasn't just unearned praise or unearned words of encouragement. It was real, and that's maybe why it stuck with you. So maybe that's something we can hold on to when we're building confidence in others, which we're going to think about now. Um, and obviously, Kieran, in your role, you work with young people, you mentor young people one to one, and support them in lots of different ways. And so you're in a really amazing position to talk about not just building confidence in yourself, which is where we started this episode, but also how we can build confidence in others. And I guess the story you've just shared is actually a really great segue into that. Um, so we're going to start off by thinking about young people at the moment, children and young people at the moment, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I don't know why I always say Gen Z, like I'm from America.
I did wonder.
I'm sorry, Kieran. Um, but in your opinion and in your experience, what are the biggest challenges preventing young people today from building confidence?
Yeah, a really, a really big question. For me, and it won't be a surprise to anyone, but I think social media has a huge impact, and I think a big part of that, from my perspective, is the fact of the ability or um, risk or capacity for what I do or for what they do, or anyone that's putting stuff out there, how it can be viewed or misused, misunderstood, misinterpreted on a vast scale. I'm sure each one of us can think of a time where we've said that thing. I actually, I was walking through Hitchin the other day, just crossing the road, and you know what you do when you just cross the road, you've got your mind on a couple of other things. I tripped up a curb, and I did that whole. Thankfully, I didn't fall flat on my face, but I stumbled forward, and confidently just strode on. Now, probably some people saw me. Definitely some people saw me. I'm sure they had a little laugh, but nobody was videoing that, as far as I'm aware. That
Oh, I don't
wasn't.
know. I did see a TikTok the other day.
I've gone viral eventually. Yeah, I didn't. That moment was only can only be relived in my head,
Mm, mm,
um, and I think sadly too often I think really steals confidence is the fact that so much of social media, um, it becomes very sort of it's either good or bad in the sense of you've done something and I think what you've done is great, or
mm.
that comment that maybe is put up there that can just burn deep.
It's permanent.
Yeah.
It's yeah. It's not. Oh, a couple of people saw me in the street stumble over a curb. It's a million people have seen me stumble over a curb on TikTok. Or
Or just that sense of judging what we look like or
mm,
our choices or things like that. Where again, that happens in life. We're aware of that. Why we're even talking about confidence is because
mm,
there are things that remove, steal, or break our confidence. But suddenly, having ourselves out there where millions upon millions of people can give you their opinion, and we know that when there is no face to face, when someone can give you their opinion without having to look you in the eye,
mm,
often it's not positive, and yet that stuff does not change the depth or the pain or the heartache that it can cause.
mm. And I was just thinking about your journey and maybe some of the risks you took in leaving a friendship group, leaving your rugby team. And those would have been challenges, and often making difficult decisions and facing challenges are what builds confidence in the first place. And I wonder if what you said there about young people being so concerned with the fact that any mistake they made is going to feel permanent, it's going to feel like the whole world gets to see it. I wonder if that's actually stopping them from taking on challenges or risking making mistakes that in the long term build confidence, and that they're scared of even doing those things in the first place just because of the nature of social media and feeling like everything that goes wrong is going to be made public and permanent.
Yeah, I'd say so, and it's tough because it's that's part of our life now.
Mm,
And so we've almost now got to navigate how we do that
mm,
within that space. And, a simple thing I always encourage people, when you're with your friends, don't always, be engaged on your phones at the same time. You don't
mm,
have to video or photograph anything. Um, it's almost allow yourself to be in that
mm.
moment and enjoy it without that worry or fear of what, how am I going to post this or share this?
Because I think from that, from wanting to video everything, take a photo of everything that happens, not only is it adding that pressure to all the situations and making it feel like everything is going to be permanent, everything is going to be public, but I also think it makes us more self-conscious in a way, in that we're worried about not just what are people, my friends around me in this moment, going to think of me, but also in 30 minutes time when I post this picture on Instagram, what are my 500 followers on Instagram going to think of me? And so there's this almost sort of pressure that's not even from the real world that's being added into all these situations. Now, moving on slightly, we've obviously thought about the challenges young people face today, but in your work mentoring young people and supporting young people, with the challenges that they face and maybe the different landscape they've grown up in, have you ever been taught a lesson or seen something in a young person's story that's actually taught you something about confidence that you maybe hadn't seen before?
Yeah, loads actually. And part of it, I want to be a lifelong learner, and so I even come back to that sense of since the ages sort of 17, 18, having a mentor, and continually having a mentor with very, very few breaks. Um, it's because I've got so much more to learn. I really have, and so even as I mentor young people, yeah, I want to impart some knowledge or some wisdom, or experience that I've had, but I can also learn so much from them. And there's a few young people that pop to mind that I've definitely learned from. There was one lad that I remember, even at the age of sort of 10, 11. I asked him what he wanted to be, and his answer was a rock star. And he still remember he did the massive air guitar, as he said it. And I mentioned him a number of times as he went through his schooling, and now I know that he's off to uni studying music. He does open mics. Like, maybe he's not quite Ed Sheeran yet,
Mm,
but I love that fact that he had a dream, and throughout, from the age of 10 to I think he's like 19 now, he's been working towards that dream, and it was probably even before he was 10, that he wanted that. And just that sense of, I learned that hold on to those dreams,
mm,
even if you're young, you're small, or whatever it may be, hold on to it. That's definitely something that's taught me, that willingness to stand up for what you believe.
mm,
Sometimes I can get shy or worried or nervous about doing that. And I think about this 14-year-old just last year who, that was it, they were committed to this thing, and again didn't care what other people thought. They didn't care what peers said. I say peers over friends, because actually their friends again were right
mm,
behind them. They believed in them, and cared and wanted to support them. Their peers, those that were just around them, not so, but they
mm,
they were not swayed by that. And just seeing almost this like steel like confidence that run through them, even though they weren't the loudest or any of those things, but they were sure. They
mm,
they absolutely believed in what they were doing. And I tip my hat to them, and in awe of them, because I was like, I'm proud to know you.
mm. Sounds like those young people that you'd work with, they knew themselves really well. That young person knew he wanted to be a rock star. He wasn't saying that because someone else had told him that he should be a rock star, or his friendship group all wanted to be rock stars. He wanted to be a rock star. And I think that's a really, really key lesson about confidence is stop looking externally. Don't look at what your favorite
Mm.
celebrity are doing. Don't do what all your friends are doing. It's about being honest with yourself and being vulnerable with yourself and looking inward and figuring out who am I and what do I want to do? Because I think that story really shows that actually when we do the thing that we know that we're called to do, that we just have this deep desire in us to become a rock star or to become a teacher, become a footballer, whatever it is, really that's when we're our most confident, when we're doing the thing that we just feel like we've almost been made to do.
Mm.
And so I think if we can find ways to shut off those external influences that are maybe telling us what we need to do or what we should do, and figure out actually deep down, what do I want to do? Who am I? and just being as true to that as you can be in this sort of noisy world. Actually, that's such a great way to build confidence. And I thought about along that story, I'm sure obviously you would have been that encourager, that champion of when the young person said, I want to be a rock star, you'd have been like, yeah, you can do that. I mean, there's going to be some challenges along the way, but I'm here to encourage you, to champion you. There may have been some people that would have just said, you can't do that. You know, the chance of you being a rock star are slim to none. Just shut that dream down and just focus on something more sensible. And a book that we both read by Stephen Peters, the Chimp Paradox, the mind management book, he talks about how if you take a sample size of, you might have to correct me on this, Kieran, but if it's a sample size of say 5 people, 2 people might really love you, one person might not really mind, might kind of be a bit neutral, and 2 people might think, oh, that guy's awful. Now you might correct me on that. Is that number about right?
Yeah, I think it's well, yeah, just to not to say you've done your maths wrong. You did get to five,
I did get the
but
five.
yeah, I believe it's sort of 3 out of 5 will love you. You got that 1 out of 5 that will just be okay with you, and you're always going to have that one you cannot please. So like 20% of the people we're never going to please. 20% of those, they'll just be okay. They're neither love nor hate us. They're just, it's all fine, bit vanilla. But then you've got that 60 that will be right behind you.
Mm. And I feel like it was important to point that out when we're talking about confidence, in that often those negative voices, perhaps that 1 out of 5, can feel like the loudest voice and can feel like the only voice in the room. And those people that tell us not to be ourselves or not to follow our dreams can really knock our confidence. But I thought it was important to just bring that up because actually we all need to be reminded that there are people around us that want to encourage us, just like what we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, and it's part of that confidence is choosing those voices,
Mm,
and that's difficult, but I would say really key. Who am I going to listen
mm,
to? Who am I going to give weight to or value to?
mm,
And again, it sounds easy to do and much harder. It's easy to say, much harder to do, in that sense of yeah, just reminding yourself of that. That person, for me, that Tim and Richard, I give value to them. Their opinion, their thoughts about me matter because they know me and I know they love me. Billy, over there, not interested,
mm,
because they don't know me. Maybe they've just seen an action, they've made a judgment of me.
mm,
That's okay. They've not seen all of it. I forgive them for that, but I'm not going to hold on to that.
mm,
And I say, much harder to do. It's very easy to say, but as we exercise it like a muscle
mm,
and remind ourselves, like you say, writing that stuff down,
mm,
holding on to those positive things,
mm.
and reflecting upon them can really help.
We're going to pivot now from our previous kind of topic about working with young people and building confidence in young people, the challenges they face, and also what they've taught you about confidence, and actually start to think about what impact does your faith have on your confidence, which I know is a huge question, Kieran. Sorry to just throw a very broad question like that at you, but what would you say, what impact does your faith have on your confidence?
Yeah, huge impact. In fact, years and years ago, when I had this moment of changing friendship groups, I didn't really have a faith then. I guess I was sort of exploring it, but I still remember being stuck in this place, and other people have talked about this thing called prayer working, and stuff like that, and I wasn't really sure of it, but I remember being given one of those New Testament and Psalm books, um, and so I thought, oh, maybe that'll have the answer. And so I flicked through, and it said something, if you're worried about something, go to this Psalm, and it was Psalm 118, verse 6. And this way it said, "The Lord is with me, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" And I didn't really have faith, as I said, but there was something about these words that I was like, what can these guys do to me?
Mm,
Doesn't, don't, don't worry about it. And I just remember having this real sense of peace. Didn't change the sort of impact of the physical situation that was in. These guys weren't very happy that I was leaving that group, and definitely made that known. Um, but that gave me real peace. And as I've gone further on, my faith has made a massive difference. I took a complete career change because I felt that's what
Mm.
my faith was telling me to do. I thought about being a solicitor, and I thought I was going to be in court and be winning. I'd probably watched too many films, basically,
Mm.
and I started my career, and it wasn't for me. Yeah, and
Mm.
I went and helped out at my local Sunday school and worked with young people and loved it, and it just felt like a light had been switched on. And I always remember, even from a young age, I wanted to make a difference. Um, and so my faith has really helped me in that. And it's also in those moments where I've had those knocks or people have said stuff, I've come back and I thought, well, who is it I want to be? Um, who am I called to be? Who am I created? Who am I designed to be? And that's why I really believe in that. Sort of helps me in those moments,
Mm.
that it helps me stand firm. Doesn't mean it's not painful. Doesn't mean it's not challenging, but it's almost this. There's a great parable in the Bible about the man that built his house on a rock, and
Mm.
even though the storms and that hit and crashed around it, he was all right. And it's like that. Actually, I want to build my confidence who I am upon a rock,
Mm.
so that when the storms come, I'm okay.
Well, I'm glad we made that pivot to that question, Kieran, because I think there's some gold in that answer. I'd imagine that lots of people today, whether they're young people, whether they're young adults just starting out in their career, it feels like the world is an impossible place to build confidence in because of the news, because of our culture, because of technology, and because of religion, politics, all of these things that I feel like a word that's been with me recently is just the gravity of these things. It feels like it can be crushing, it can be hard to just live with the weight of all of these things. And so I think one of the ways that it sounds like you built confidence is actually seeing that there's something bigger than that. There's something bigger than these mere mortals, as that verse from, is it Psalm 118?
118.
That it says that these mere mortals of the news cycle, of other people's opinions, of the media, of all these things, yes, they're huge and they're big demands and challenges that we have to face. But actually, ultimately, there is something bigger that you've kind of put your confidence in, and that's given you a lot of confidence in return.
Absolutely. And I have to hold on to that. And I suppose almost like again in Steve Peters' book, The Chimp Paradox, talks about those life stones.
Mm.
For me, that would be one of them.
Mm.
It helps ground me.
Comes back to knowing yourself, knowing your values, knowing what you really, who you are, what your drives are, what your purpose is. For those that you don't know, could you explain a little bit more about what those kind of life stones in that book are?
Yeah, the life stones are the things that almost that anchor you.
Mm.
So I mean, like you say there, it's around maybe that purpose, those values.
Mm.
It would be your worldview.
Mm.
Faith, if you have it, or whatever your worldview is. It's those truths that run through you,
Mm.
that you hang on to, so that when you're faced with a challenge, problem, situation, or
Mm.
whatever it may be, you they help guide you. They're those guiding principles.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Nice. And maybe something that has come from this podcast is that people should go and check out that book. And I believe there's also a version of it for young people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a really good one called Hidden Chimp,
Mm.
which is for parents to sort of try and understand some of those
Mm.
emotions, and sort of how the child and teen brain is working. But yeah, Chimp Paradox is a really, really good book, really easy to read. Um,
Mm.
I'd like to say there's an affiliate link in the pod, but there's not. We don't get any any kickback from you buying it, other than knowing that it's going to make a difference.
Mm. And as we've just been speaking about the book, I read it recently actually, and I would say that I'm not as naturally confident as you, Kieran. And something that struck me, a lesson that stood out to me in the chapter on building confidence, was that Professor Stephen Peters says that our confidence should be based on knowing that we gave 100%, not necessarily the outcome of what we did. And that really stood out to me because I think that so often I, as maybe someone that isn't naturally confident, can think, oh, this is going to go wrong. What if I stumble upon my words there, or what if I give the ball away in the football match there? But actually, I can feel so much more confident going into things if I know that I did my best. That was all I could do. I gave 100%, and I'll have learned from that. I'll have grown from that. And next time when I go and do my best, maybe it will go even better. But that just really stood out to me in that. Um, and again, coming back to a kind of a theme that's cut through this podcast is confidence being about the internal, not the external. Me giving my 100% is something that's very much internal. Only I can know for sure that I gave my best. And then the outcome of that, how that goes, whether I give a perfect pitch or speech or it doesn't go so well, that's for other people to judge and other people to see. But ultimately, I can only build my confidence and judge myself on knowing that I gave 100%. I just thought it'd be a useful lesson to share as we go into the final part of this podcast now, where to summarize, we love doing the sort of bullet point 3 lessons. We've spoken about a lot today. We've covered a lot of ground. So I guess we'll probably summarize some of the ground we've already covered. Maybe some new stuff will come up in this. But just to end the podcast, if anyone wants to share it with their friends and say, just listen to the last 5 minutes, what are 3 actionable takeaways that people can do if they really want to build that internal confidence and assurance?
Yeah, I think a really simple one. Well, I say simple. All these things are like you've got to do something about it. That's why we call them actionable, because they don't just happen to you. You have to be proactive. And I say the first one is, write, like you said before, write those things down. When someone says something positive to you, write it down. You're going to get lots of negative things, and those things will feel like they stick. And so you've got to have something that can change that narrative, and that is those compliments. I always encourage people, and I do this myself. Say them to yourself. Read them out so you hear them. You're not just looking at them on a piece of paper, but you're reading them out so you're hearing them. Because what goes in comes out, and so if we can put that stuff in, it's more likely to come out. So yeah, right.
I just add one on to that, Kieran,
Yeah.
actually. Just what you said about writing down compliments and encouraging words people have said. Maybe even just write down when things have gone well. Because how often do we go into something that we're scared of doing? Maybe it's a meeting at work or a big football match at the weekend. Maybe win that match or that presentation goes really well, that meeting goes really well, and then we forget about it. And actually maybe writing down them things as well would be a good thing to hold on to. Tell the story to yourself of that time that thing went really well, because then you can look back on that next time you've got a really big meeting and go, actually, last time I did this, I smashed it. And sort of holding on to the positive when it can be so easy to forget about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And added to that, seems we're looking for bonus content. Is gratitude journaling. Again, a great thing to do. Write down those 3 positives from each day. It really helps to impact and change your outlook. So yeah, the first one I say, write down those
Write
compliments.
down the positive things. Hold on to those positives.
Absolutely. The second one I would say is to pause and to breathe. And the reason I say that is so often, like I say, whether it's going in and thinking, oh, I've got to own the room or talk, actually just pausing, taking a breath. I often say to young people, you think about a sports person before they take that free kick, that penalty, or that moment, you'd often see them take a couple of really deep breaths. And it just helps us to focus, helps us to push out some of that noise. Is that thing that somebody's trying to get me to do, is that what I want to do? By breathing, you're just giving your brain just a moment to really contemplate and think, is this who I want to be or what I want to do?
Because I suppose sometimes confidence is, not always, but in essence, sometimes it's just our ability to deal with negative emotions and manage them well and step into difficult situations. And there is almost nothing as useful to manage negative emotions as just taking a breath. It just kind of overrides so much of the physiology of our nervousness, of our anxiety. And so, yeah, taking a breath, that's such a great piece of advice. So we've got write it down, record the positives,
Yep.
take a breath. What is your third and final top tip?
Third and final, and I'm going to be cheeky, and you won't be surprised here, James, but I'm going to bundle 2 in together.
Okay.
Like
Well, you buy one, get one free.
Yep. And that is to wrestle with the awkward and smile. And what I mean by that is, to be confident, sometimes you're going to have to do that challenging thing, whether it's stumbling over your words and choosing just to take a breath and keep going. Often when we are confident, it is about going a different pathway to other people, but to smile. In fact, when we smile, the quote says the world smiles with us, and that's because smiles are infectious. When you smile, it improves the way your brain sees things, how you see things. People will return that smile to you. Yeah, embrace the awkward and smile.
There's some good top tips, Kieran. Some very good ones. I'm going to add on my one if that's okay.
You sure can.
Just a bonus one for the listeners out there. My top tip, and I agree with all of your 3, but I'm just going to add this one on, is just to re-emphasize how important it is to surround yourself with positive people. And not even necessarily, yes, positive people, yes, you want to be around people that are encouraging and positive, but also just those people that when you're around them, you can be yourself. Because I think that so much of confidence comes from being able to be who you truly are and pursue that as well. Pursue your biggest passions, your biggest ambitions, um, and continue to kind of uncover that who you really are, who your authentic self is. And so I think that being around positive people, being around people that allow you to be vulnerable, allow you to be authentic is so important for building confidence. Because otherwise, you're always gonna feel like to have confidence, you're gonna have to put on a mask. And so, yeah, being around those people that are really your people, your tribe, is really key for me as well. Kieran, that's all we've got time for today. What would you like to say as a final message to our listeners?
Well, just want to say, smile, be that person you feel called and designed to be, and remember that confidence isn't always about the outward, but it's about the inward. And we believe in you.
Kieran, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing on whatever platform you're listening on. And we'd absolutely love it if you could let us know your thoughts by commenting or rating the show. And finally, stay up to date with all things FaZe by following us on social media at FaZe Hitchin.